No one ever expected a human to walk calmly into a room full of dying predator cubs and survive. But that day, on board the warship Iron Fang, everything changed. It wasn't a battle that changed minds, it was the way a single human woman faced the galaxy's most dangerous young ones with no weapon, no armor, and no fear. Commander Rourke of the Veilian Empire had fought over 60 space wars. He had clawed through titanium hulls and stood unmoved before plasma storms. But humans? He never understood them. Their soft skin, flat teeth, and dull claws made them look like prey animals, weak, yet everywhere across the stars, alien species. Trusted humans with their most precious things, their young. Even the brutal Krath soldiers. Hatchlings could bite through a starfighter's wing. Let humans care for them. The poisonous Narathi, known for killing with a single drop of venom, allowed humans to treat their newborns. He believed it was some kind of joke until the fire on Iron Fang. The ship was the pride of the Veilian fleet. It carried over 300 elite soldiers and had a special nursery chamber, where 12 Veilian cubs were kept under high protection. These young ones were born killers, even as babies. Their bite could crush steel, and their instincts told them to attack anything that moved. On that quiet day, when the soldiers were running battle simulations and Rourke was deep in a strategy briefing, a sudden explosion shook the ship. A plasma conduit near the nursery burst, flooding the vents with burning gas. Alarms screamed. The emergency systems tried to seal the fire off, but something failed. Toxic smoke began to pour into the nursery fast and thick. "They're trapped," shouted Lieutenant Core, his voice high with panic. "The bulkhead's sealed. We can't open them, or we risk blasting them all." Rourke raced to the observation deck. Through the glass, he could see the camera feeds the nursery room filled with smoke. The cubs were huddled in the corner, growling and clawing at each other in fear. His own daughter was in there. "Get them out," Rourke growled. "We can't." Core cried. "Our bodies can't fit through the emergency vents." "No one can reach them in time. No one," came a quiet voice. Rourke turned. Standing near the back of the room was a human female Gina. She was part of the cultural exchange program, a medic, barely taller than a cub, always quiet and watching. She stepped forward, calm but firm. "I can get through the vents," she said. Rourke bared his teeth. "They'll tear you apart. You're not one of us. They won't recognize you. They're scared, and you'll look like prey to them." Gina's face stayed still. "You have no time, Commander. Let me try, please." He wanted to say no. His instincts screamed it. But her voice didn't shake. It was soft but sure. And in that moment, he realized no one else could do it. "Go," he said, barely louder than a whisper. Gina nodded and ran. The maintenance vents were small, dark, and burning hot, but she didn't hesitate. She moved like someone who had done this before, crawling fast through the tight metal tubes until she reached the nursery in the control room. Watched on the screen. Gina dropped into the smoky room. The cubs turned at once, eyes wide. And wild, they crouched, growling, claws extended. Each one was the size of an adult human, with thick muscles and blood-stained teeth. She didn't run. She didn't speak. There, I send out. We are to hum. It wasn't a song with words, just a soft, low melody. A lullaby that felt older than space itself, a sound that somehow cut through the smoke, through the panic, through the fear. The cubs froze. Their growls faded. They stared. Then she curled into a ball. She made herself smaller. She looked weak. "She's pretending to be hurt," whispered Lieutenant Core. "No," Rark said, his eyes locked on the screen. "She's becoming prey." It worked. One by one, the cubs crept forward, not to attack, but to circle her, to protect her. They pressed close to her curled body, growling not at her, but at the smoke, the fire, the danger. 12 deadly. Young Veilians had turned into a shield around a single human. "She's flipped their instincts," Core said, stunned. "They think she needs them." Gina slowly lifted her head. She didn't stand or speak. She simply pointed toward the vent she had come through. Then she crawled, slowly, carefully, never meeting their eyes. They followed. When one small cub collapsed, coughing from the smoke, Gina scooped him into her arms. He was nearly half her size, all claws and teeth, but he didn't struggle. She held him gently, singing as she moved. One by one, she led them out. And when she finally crawled back through the last vent with the last cub in her arms, the entire command deck was silent. Rark stepped forward. His daughter clung to the human woman's leg, nuzzling her like a pup. No scratches, no bites, not even a single scream. Gina sat in the medbay later, treating the minor burns on her hands. Rark stood in front of her, holding his child. He didn't know what to say, but something deep inside him, something older than pride, older than instinct, finally understood. Humans weren't weak. They were something else entirely. Commander York had seen war. He had faced death. But he had never felt as confused as he did now. He stood in the control room, staring at the paused footage on the monitor. A small human woman sat in a smoke-filled room, surrounded by 12 Veilian predator cubs each, one with claws sharper than steel. They weren't attacking her. They were guarding her. He didn't understand. Every rule he had been taught said this should not be possible. The cubs should have seen the human as weak, as prey, as an easy target. But instead, they had treated her like family, like something worth protecting. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Core, stood beside him. "I've replayed it 10 times, he whispered. "Still doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to," Rark muttered. "Not by our laws." Deep inside, he felt something shifting, a small crack in the cold wall of tradition and pride. That same morning, Rark went to the medbay. Gina, the human medic, was sitting quietly on a small bed, her hands wrapped in bandages. Her face was tired, but calm. She looked up as Rark stepped in, but she didn't stand. She just nodded. He walked slowly toward her. "You did something." "None of us could," he said. "You saved them." She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "They were scared." "Scared cubs don't always need strength. Sometimes they need calm." "You calmed 12 Veilian young," Rark said. "They could have killed you." "They didn't," Gina said simply, "because I didn't act like a threat." Rark studied her. "You knew how they'd react." "I hoped," she said. "I've worked with cubs before. I've seen fear up close. And I've learned that young ones, even dangerous ones, can feel trust when it's real." He sat on the chair across from her, his thick frame making the seat creak. "Fought my whole life, Gina. My people rise by power, by battle, but you walked into a death trap and survived because you sang." Gina smiled softly. "Not because I sang. Because I showed them I was small, harmless. They saw me as something they needed to protect." "That's not how we think," Rark said. "I know," she said, "but maybe that's why it worked." A long silence passed between them. Then, Rark asked, "Why do other species trust your kind with their young?" Gina took a breath. "'Cause humans raised helpless children for thousands of years. Our babies cry, scream, fall, and need care. We learn to listen, to notice. We don't survive by strength alone. We survive by connection." Rark shook his head slowly. "You're not apex predators, no," Gina said. "Or persistence. Hunters, we chase. We adapt. And most of all, we protect what we love." That afternoon, Yark held a meeting with his senior officers. He played the full recording. From the moment Gina entered the nursery to when the last cub followed her out, the room was silent. One officer grunted. The cubs were confused, that's all. No, Rark said. They weren't confused. They made a choice. They felt something they don't usually feel: safety. The council stayed quiet. Another officer asked, "So what now? We let humans train our young." Rark nodded. "We begin with one. Begin with Gina, and we learn." The next few days on Iron Fang felt different. Not because of orders, not because of new rules, but because the cubs were different. They played softer. They looked for Gina. They trusted her. Even Rark's daughter Yari clung to her whenever she entered the nursery. She listened to Gina's voice more than any warrior's roar. One day, Rark walked past the learning center and stopped. Inside, 2 cubs were fighting. One was Veilian, the other a small Trexari with sharp stingers. Their growls echoed through the hallway. Claws and teeth flashed. One wrong move, and blood would spill. Before anyone could react, Gina stepped between them. She didn't yell. She didn't touch them. She knelt down, looked at both of them, whispered something so soft it couldn't be heard. The cubs blinked. They stopped. Then, slowly, they put the toy they were fighting over on the ground and sat beside her. Just like that. Rark's chest tightened. It wasn't magic. It was something older than that. Something deeper. The language of trust. Later, that evening, Yark stood on the bridge, watching the stars pass by. He had lived through many battles, earned medals, lost friends. But today, something had changed inside him. He thought about the old stories Veilians told their children. Tales. Of warriors and monsters, of strength and power. But maybe it was time to tell a new story. One about a small human who saved 12 cubs, not with force, but with kindness. He looked down at the report in his hands. It was addressed to the Veilian High Command. In it, he recommended creating a permanent human caretaker program. Just for medicine or teaching, but for something much bigger. For connection, he sighed and signed it. Then he whispered, almost to himself, "We were wrong." Behind him, the stars kept shining. "Humans are not prey," he said softly. "They are protectors. They just speak a language most of us forgot how to hear." And now, he was finally listening.